Hello, Sariah, Bastian here, owner and creator of Beyond Breath. And I have with me today one of my clients who took Beyond Breath way back when I was testing this in different areas. See, I've been teaching this course since 2014, and I did it in a clinic live with women. And there was a time when I sent it out and just did the modules without any coaching and had no interaction with the clients. They just specifically did the Beyond Breath modules. And Edwina partook of it during that kind of test group. And she's here to share with us her experience today with purely just the modules that she took. So welcome, Edwina. I'm so happy that you could join me today.
I'm happy to be here.
Yes, thank you so much. So let's dive into the questions so that you can share your experience. Tell us, what was the main problem that you were experiencing before you participated in Beyond Breath?
So I would say that my main problem and challenge at the time, it was in my marriage. So I had discovered that my then husband was struggling with a sex addiction. And the reason that I made that big discovery, I actually found a very graphic video and pictures of him with another woman. And that kind of opened up the can of worms, where to the point that I was having very intense triggers just in my body, intrusive images of what I saw. It was just to the point that I really just felt unsafe in my body, and I felt unsafe around him. Mm-hmm. I used to tell him it almost felt like he was walking around with a loaded gun, because I could just expect him to drop a bomb at any moment. I could see, if I looked at his face, I could just see what I saw. And a lot of the way that I would try to even gain a little bit of reassurance or even a little bit of safety was to look through his things, through his computer, through his social media, through his phone, because if I found that, what else could there be? And I just wanted to really get down to the root of things, because I could not believe anything that he was telling me. Mm-hmm. So my biggest challenge was just constant hypervigilance, constant looking for things to get to the bottom of the bigger truth. And just the very invasive images that I was having because of what I saw.
Yeah. How long had you been dealing with these symptoms, with this hypervigilance?
Oh, well, the hypervigilance, I would say probably for almost a decade. I mean, we had been married at that point for 13 years, and there had been indiscretions throughout the marriage, not to the extent that I found. I mean, he always kind of denied there actually ever been any physical affairs, but I would come across, flirty texts or things here and there that he would kind of explain away or minimize. And I constantly was drawing a line out. As long as he didn't do this, then we could continue working. And we would go to couples therapy and do all of the things to try and get to the root of the problem, which for him, he said it was communication. So I think for the entirety of my marriage, I was not always, but whenever I would get kind of like that gut that was telling me something's up, I will look through his phone, I will look through his emails. Wow. So I was constantly doing that for probably a decade.
That's a long time.
That's a long time.
You said you tried couples therapy. Like, what other things had you tried to remedy this?
We tried a few stints of couples therapy, and what would happen is that, I would find something, we would go to couples therapy, things would kind of sort of minimize, and then we would stop. And it's kind of like these flare-ups that would happen every couple of years. I myself went to individual therapy as well to try and just kind of mitigate when those flare-ups would come up, or just kind of maybe my own insecurities. So up until that point, that's what we had tried, was just therapy.
Wow, just the cycle of hope, we're trying and then fade, and then hope, we're trying and then fade. Yeah, that's such a hard cycle to break. So you've completed Beyond Breath and have been done for a couple of years now with the modules. Tell me, when you joined Beyond Breath, what was the highlight for you, and what have been some of the results that have really transformed things for you in your life?
It's hard to point out one highlight, but I would say probably my biggest takeaway was Beyond Breath really brought me to the present moment, which really kind of helped me work through those triggers. It was very difficult for me when I would get into those states where I would just, again, it was just very intrusive. I could just be, taking a shower, and the minute that I took a peek and just saw my hip, it was just the images would come on. So with Beyond Breath, like I learned through the modules and through the work to come back to the now. So there was things, that you would definitely teach around, like, how do you come back to this present moment and get out of that ruminous thought? And it was just, what are you seeing? What are you hearing? What are you feeling? And the minute that I would do that, I would come back into my body, and those kind of images would kind of dissipate. And the next time it happened, I would do it again. And eventually it kind of became automatic and kind of like a reflex. And the images just started to just dissuade and became less and less and less. So for me, I would say that that was the biggest highlight, because while that was happening, I wasn't living in the present moment. I was constantly in the cycle of just trauma and living in the past, and then worried about the future. What if this happens again? How do I get out of this? So for me, I would say that that has been the biggest highlight. That certainly, the rest of my healing, that had to stop before I could actually move on with the rest of my healing.
Totally. So how did that help? Like, what has been the result of that first healing, right? That's one of the first things I teach you too in Beyond Breath, because you have to get out of that neural pathway that you're living in, right? You have to create something new, and you have to create safety within yourself. So where did that result take you?
It took me to trusting myself. And I would say probably trusting myself for the very first time. I wouldn't even say trusting myself again, because I don't think that I truly, now that I know what that looks like, I don't think that I knew what that was before I even lived in that space. So I think it definitely taught me how to trust myself. What does that look like? How to really live in my own truth. Instead of depending on someone else's truth to dictate my actions. And as I moved more into that, it certainly dictated how I moved in that marriage, which unfortunately didn't work out. And it didn't work out because he didn't do his work.
Yes.
So the further I went into my healing, the marriage was no longer in alignment with where I really wanted to be. And the way that it continues to help me now is that I use it to navigate every single part of my life. I started dating again, and I definitely use that back to when I'm starting to get to know someone. How does that align with me? What am I seeing? What are they saying? Just how does my body feel? And I really kind of use that as my compass, instead of just being driven by fear, like, oh my God, I hope this doesn't happen again. And what if I miss it? And it's just, it kind of takes you out of that trauma lens and that fear-based way of living.
And you can see, I mean, you're not there to experience it, but you can see that had you not taken yourself from that trauma place and taken out those trauma glasses, that you would be doing that in the dating world now.
Yes.
Yes. That's something that I say over and over. Like, people are so worried about that one decision. Should I stay or should I leave? As if that's your choice. But like you're saying, like, moment by moment, you took the time to make a choice based on your exact situation, where you were. And that led you to that ultimate decision, which was painful, but peaceful. And now, because of that, you've taken that piece outside of that decision and continuing to live that beyond the marriage.
Yes.
I love it. It's beautiful and amazing. And I love, again, like, just to hone in on, like, what I tell people now is, if you never came to a coaching call, you didn't even have the workbook when you did it, and you still got these results. Beyond Breath works. What would you say to somebody who's on the fence about joining us?
Don't think twice. Again, for me, like you said, I didn't have those elements that you mentioned, which, I mean, I would be like, I want to do it again with those elements. But no, I mean, the way that the program itself was when I did it 2 years ago, even with that, was so beneficial. I mean, for me, it was life-changing. Like I said, my marriage didn't work, but it took almost 8 months, even after I took the program, for me to finally make a decision that it wasn't for me. But the tools that I gained in Beyond Breath is what led me to make those decisions, because I was with someone that was still gaslighting and still manipulating me. But the more that I relied on my body telling me the truth, the less I was able to rely on him being able to dictate, my truth. So for me, it has been absolutely life changing. I do think that if I had not taken Beyond Breath, there could be a potential that I would have still been in that relationship. I think it would have taken me longer and more trauma to hopefully finally step out of that cycle. And to your point, I mean, I would have been, even if I did step out of that, I would have gotten into another cycle, because I think I would have been just continuing with the same mentality and the same habits that I had before. So I would say, if you are tired of being in the cycle that you're in, whether it's with your marriage or relationship, or just how you're moving through life, Beyond Breath is an absolutely amazing, beautiful tool to really help you to get to know yourself for the first time and really rely on your body as being your truth compass. I mean, it was life-changing for me, and it continues to be.
I love that. And I love that word compass. It gives me the shivers. And I'm listening right now to Brene Brown's Atlas to the Heart, I think is what it's called.
Atlas of the Heart. Yes.
Atlas of the Heart. And as she's talking, I understand what she's saying, but I feel like what Beyond Breath does is it actually gives you the step-by-step map to your heart.
Yes.
Like how to actually approach that and live that. Because I love Brene Brown's research and the words that she uses, but for those of us in trauma, we get that, but we're like, how? And I feel like Beyond Breath is the how.
Yes.
And then you navigate that. Your body is the compass. You're the captain of that, and you navigate your life and create the life that you want over and over and over again.
Exactly.
I love it. Thank you so much for sharing your experience of Beyond Breath with us. And for those of you listening, if you've second guessed yourself, which we all do when we're in trauma, right? Like, will this really work? Will this really work? Like Edwina did this without any even coaching from me and received the results you just heard. And it's beautiful to hear. And over again, we see these results happen because this healing of your brain and your body connection has to happen so that other therapies can take place. And if you're looking for the answer, should I stay or should I go? This is the pathway to that. And it's not like you make that decision and then your healing starts. You have to heal to be able to make that decision.
Yes.
Yeah. So thank you again. For those of you listening, if this calls to you, check out my free webinar. It's linked in the bio of my Instagram page. See if this resonates with you. If so, book a call and see if Beyond Breath is the missing piece for you and your healing and your life. All right. I love you, Edwina. Thank you for coming. I love all of you.
Thank you, Sariah.
And we'll talk to you soon.